All right, get ready to dive deep. Today we're exploring the world of personal freedom with Lester Levenson's Plus Keys to Personal Freedom.
Oh, yeah, a fascinating one.
It's filled with teachings and conversations about breaking free from all sorts of limitations.
Mm.
And, well, we're on a mission
Okay.
to unearth those golden nuggets of wisdom that can help us, live a more fulfilling life.
I like it. A treasure hunt for inner freedom.
Exactly. So to kick things off, maybe you could give us a little background on Lester Levenson.
Absolutely. So picture this. Levenson, born in 1909,
Okay.
a physicist and engineer.
Wow, a very logical mind.
You got it. But then in 1952, a major health scare hits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really makes him confront the big questions about life and happiness,
That'll definitely make you rethink things.
For sure. And here's the remarkable part. Levenson claimed to find those answers in just 3 months.
3 months.
It's like he cracked the code to happiness on fast forward.
That's incredible.
It is, and that's the heart of his message, you see. If he could do it that quickly,
Yeah.
anyone with a strong enough desire can achieve that freedom too.
Okay, so there's hope for us yet.
Absolutely.
But how do we even start, Where do we begin to identify those invisible barriers that are holding us back?
Well, Levinson introduces this really mind-bending concept. The world as we experience it, it's essentially a dream.
Whoa, hold on. A dream. Like the Matrix.
It's a good analogy.
Okay.
Think about it. In a dream, everything feels so real, right? Until you wake up.
Right.
Levinson suggests it's the same for our waking life. Our thoughts and feelings are constantly shaping our reality, creating this dreamlike experience.
So if our thoughts are creating this dream world,
Yeah.
how do we wake up to something bigger, something more real?
Levinson believed that by releasing our feelings, we could quiet the mind and uncover our true infinite nature.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but how do we actually release those feelings? What does that even look like?
That's where the release technique comes in.
Okay.
It's a method for letting go of those thoughts, feelings, and desires that keep us, well, stuck in that dream state.
Stuck.
Yeah, like a broken record.
So is this some sort of intense emotional purge or something?
Not exactly. Levinson laid out 5 stages of growth,
Okay.
starting with, and bear with me here,
Okay.
apathetic non-doingness.
Apathetic non-doingness.
Yep, and it leads all the way to beingness.
Got it. 5 stages.
He saw the current world in stage 2,
Uh-huh.
an age driven by, all that scientific advancement and those material pursuits.
Ah, the classic rat race.
Exactly. He called it the materialistic age.
Right.
But he envisioned a future, the era of knowing, where we move beyond those limitations.
Beyond the rat race.
That's okay.
So that's where this release technique comes in.
Precisely. It helps us evolve both individually and collectively.
Okay, I'm getting the sense this is pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
But what exactly are we releasing? And how does it actually work?
It's about letting go of those negative emotions and limiting beliefs that are holding us back,
Okay.
Levinson talked a lot about letting go and letting God, surrendering control, and allowing a higher power to guide us.
But isn't some control necessary?
Yeah.
We can't just float through life without any effort.
He wasn't suggesting passivity. No.
Okay.
It's more about aligning with a greater force. Like imagine trying to force a river to flow in a certain direction.
Lots of resistance.
Exactly, but surrendering to the natural current.
That's effortless.
Exactly.
So it's more about trusting in the natural unfolding of life rather than trying to micromanage everything.
You got it.
But how does that align with personal responsibility, taking action to achieve our goals?
Well, Levinson would argue that true responsibility lies in understanding that our thoughts create our reality.
Okay.
When we get that, we become empowered to choose thoughts that align with our desires, rather than perpetuating limitations.
So instead of being victims of circumstance, we become conscious creators of our lives. Powerful stuff. But this whole idea of letting go and surrendering control, it reminds me of something else Levinson talked about. The difference between human love and divine love.
Excellent point. That's a great connection. You see, Levinson saw human love as often being conditional, filled with expectations and attachments. Divine love.
Yeah.
It's about unconditional acceptance and a willingness to give without expecting anything in return.
Like the difference between loving someone for what they can do for us versus loving them for who they are.
Exactly.
But how do we cultivate that kind of love, not just for others, but for ourselves too?
Levinson believed that the key to personal and global transformation lay in giving. He often used the example of Christmas.
Christmas.
He said the spirit of giving shouldn't be confined to just one holiday.
Right, it should be a way of life.
Exactly. It should permeate everything we do.
I love that. But isn't there a danger in giving too much? What about setting boundaries and taking care of our own needs?
Levinson wasn't advocating for self-sacrifice. It's about finding that balance, recognizing that abundance flows from an open heart, a heart that's willing to share its gifts.
So giving and receiving, they're two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
But what about when we feel drained, resentful? How do we give genuinely, not out of obligation or guilt?
Levinson would say those feelings are signs we might be holding on to limiting beliefs.
Interesting.
It's about recognizing those beliefs and releasing them. That's how we experience the joy that comes from giving freely, unconditionally.
I'm starting to see how powerful this concept of givingness can be.
It is.
But how do we actually shift from that mindset of scarcity to one of abundance? It's easy to talk about, but sometimes putting it into practice is tough.
Well, Levinson emphasized that transformation starts within.
Yeah.
It's about releasing those beliefs that tell us we don't have enough, those fears of losing what we do have.
Right.
As we cultivate a deeper sense of inner abundance, our actions, they naturally reflect that shift.
So it's not just about doing good deeds. It's about cultivating a genuine spirit of generosity, one that comes from within.
You got it.
But what about when we encounter people who take advantage of that generosity? How do we balance giving with setting healthy boundaries?
That's where discernment comes in. Levinson wouldn't advocate for being a doormat.
Of course not.
True giving comes from love and empowerment,
Right.
not from fear or obligation.
Makes sense. So it's about aligning our giving with our values and our well-being. But what if we've been hurt, betrayed in the past? How do we overcome those fears and open ourselves up to giving again?
Levinson believed those past hurts often stem from the belief that our happiness depends on others.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that true happiness comes from within. By releasing those wounds, we free ourselves to give and receive love more freely.
That's a powerful reminder. It's so easy to get stuck in those patterns of fear and resentment.
It is.
But by releasing those wounds, we create space for more love and joy.
Precisely. Levinson believed that forgiveness, both of ourselves and others, is essential for true freedom and happiness.
I love that. Holding on to anger and resentment, it only hurts us.
Exactly.
But forgiveness is hard, especially when we've been deeply hurt. How do we find the strength to forgive when it feels impossible?
Levinson believed that strength comes from connecting with that inner power, that inner wisdom. He often spoke about the Christ consciousness.
Oh, interesting.
Not in a religious sense, but as a state of being.
Got it.
It's about unconditional love and acceptance. He suggested that by tapping into that consciousness, we can transcend our human limitations and experience a deeper level of peace and forgiveness.
So it's like drawing on a higher power to help us overcome those seemingly insurmountable challenges.
Exactly.
But how do we access that Christ consciousness? Are we born with it, or is it something we cultivate?
Levinson believed it was our true nature, but often obscured by our ego-driven thoughts. He emphasized quieting the mind, focusing our attention inward to reveal this awareness.
This reminds me of what he said about the power of meditation. To answer life's big questions, tap into that universal intelligence.
Exactly. Meditation for him was a way to quiet that mental chatter, to allow our true selves to emerge.
But meditation can be so hard. My mind is like a runaway train. Any tips for slowing it down?
He suggested focusing on a single thought or question, with real curiosity.
Okay.
That focus can cut through the distractions and lead to deep concentration, you know? That's where answers can appear.
So we're giving the mind a specific job to do instead of letting it wander aimlessly.
Precisely.
What if we don't have a specific question? What should we focus on then?
He often encouraged focusing on, who am I?
Who am I?
By sincerely exploring that question,
Yeah.
we can peel back those layers of conditioning and false beliefs that hide our true nature.
That's powerful. But what if we don't like what we find?
Levinson believed that true freedom comes from accepting ourselves, flaws and all.
Unconditionally.
He saw imperfections as opportunities, chances to grow and transform. He often said, what we resist persists, but what we embrace dissolves.
Yeah, so those perceived flaws might actually be guides, showing us where we can heal and grow.
Exactly.
This reminds me of what he said about desire, how we create a sense of lack and then try to fill it.
He saw that as a cycle of wanting that's never truly satisfied.
Because true joy comes from within, not from external things.
Precisely.
It's like we're always searching for something we already possess.
Yeah.
But how do we break free from that constant desire, that wanting?
He didn't say we should eliminate desire completely. He acknowledged it was natural.
Okay.
But he suggested shifting our focus.
Shifting our focus.
Instead of desiring things in the world, desire liberation, desire the self.
So it's about redirecting our desire towards something more meaningful, something lasting.
Exactly.
But how do we know which desires are distractions and which ones are truly aligned with our true selves?
Levenson encouraged us to examine our motivations. Ask ourselves, will fulfilling this desire bring me lasting happiness or just temporary gratification?
That's a great question to ask.
It is.
So it's about getting to the root of our desires, understanding what's truly driving us.
Precisely.
This is all starting to make so much sense. We've been conditioned to believe that happiness is something we need to achieve, but Levenson is saying it's already within us.
He believed it was our birthright.
But if that's true, why do we struggle so much with feeling happy?
Levenson would say it's because we identify with our limited ego, that small self, instead of our true, infinite nature.
So it's about letting go of those limiting beliefs and embracing our true selves.
Yeah, okay.
But how do we actually make that shift? How do we move from that ego-driven thinking to a more expansive way of being?
Levenson believed it started with taking full responsibility for our thoughts and actions.
Okay.
Recognizing that our minds create our reality.
So we're not just victims of circumstance. We are active participants in creating our experiences.
Precisely.
But what about those things that happen to us that are truly outside of our control? How do we balance responsibility with accepting what we can't change?
It's about finding that sweet spot.
Okay.
Accepting what is and taking responsibility for our choices. Levenson believed that by developing that awareness, we could navigate life's ups and downs with more grace and resilience.
I love that.
It's about becoming the masters of our inner world, recognizing that our thoughts and beliefs have a profound impact on our experience of the outer world.
This is all starting to connect in such a powerful way. It's like we're piecing together a puzzle, and with each new insight, the picture of personal freedom becomes clearer and clearer.
Exactly, and that's just the beginning.
There's so much more to explore.
Oh, absolutely. Levenson's teachings are a treasure trove of wisdom.
Okay, well, I'm ready to keep digging.
Me too. As we're going through all this, it's interesting how Levenson emphasized that personal freedom isn't like a one-time achievement. It's a process.
Wait, that's
releasing those layers of, limitations.
like peeling an onion. But instead of tears, we find more freedom.
Exactly.
So if it's ongoing, where do those gurus and masters fit in? Levenson didn't think we necessarily need a physical guru, right?
Right. He believed that while a guru could be helpful, the real teacher, it's inside each of us.
Interesting.
Connecting with that inner wisdom.
So we don't need someone on a mountaintop.
He even suggested a master could guide us from, other realms.
Whoa, other realms. Okay, now that's a little out there for me.
I know, it gets pretty deep. But the point is, focusing on a physical guru could distract us from that inner connection.
Okay, I can see that. So if the answers are within us, how do we actually access them?
That's the tricky part. Quieting the mind enough to hear those answers, it's like trying to hear a whisper during a hurricane.
Definitely a challenge. Levenson talks about releasing, letting go, surrendering, but how do we actually apply that in real life? Like, say I'm dealing with a difficult coworker.
Okay.
Do I just release my frustration and let them walk all over me?
That's where things get a little tricky.
Yeah.
Releasing, it's not about ignoring problems or becoming passive, no.
Okay.
It's about shifting our perspective.
Okay.
Instead of fixating on that frustration, what if you release the thoughts and feelings feeding it?
So I'm not ignoring the problem, but I'm changing how I react to it.
Exactly. It allows us to respond with clarity and power instead of just reacting from negativity.
Makes sense. But what about situations where we have zero control?
Like what?
Illness, natural disasters. Levenson seemed to believe we hold a mental picture of sickness, even if we're not aware of it.
His view on healing was definitely unique. He believed that while doctors could help, true healing came from understanding that mind-body connection.
So you saying people are responsible for their own illnesses? That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
He wasn't about blame.
Okay.
It was about acknowledging how our thoughts and beliefs can influence our physical well-being.
Interesting.
He wasn't denying those external factors, but he emphasized our inner power to heal.
So it's more about using our mental and emotional energy to support our body's natural healing.
Exactly. Shifting from feeling like a victim to feeling empowered. And you know what?
What?
Levenson believed this applied to everything, even relationships.
That's right. He had some interesting things to say about marriage and family. Didn't he believe that true happiness in a marriage doesn't actually come from your partner?
He did. He said true happiness, it comes from within.
Right, right.
We might look for it in relationships, but it originates from inside ourselves. Marriage, he thought, could be an amazing opportunity for growth, but only if we approach it with the intention to expand our love and understanding.
So it's less about finding the perfect partner to complete us, and more about using the relationship as a mirror for our own growth.
I like that. It's about realizing that each relationship can teach us about ourselves.
Yeah, help us grow our compassion, deepen the connection we have with our own hearts.
Beautiful. Didn't he also apply these ideas to parenting?
Absolutely, he was a big believer in leading by example.
Right.
Kids learn more from what we do than what we say.
So by working on ourselves, healing our own wounds and limitations, we're creating a better environment for our children.
Exactly.
Makes sense. But what about those moments when our kids, well, trigger our own unresolved stuff?
Tough one. Remember the release technique.
Yeah, of course.
By releasing those reactive emotions, those limiting beliefs, we can react to our kids with more patience and understanding.
So those moments when we get triggered, they become opportunities to release old patterns.
Exactly. Levenson believed that this process would ultimately lead to a more harmonious family dynamic.
Where everyone feels supported and understood. I like that.
Me too.
Okay, so we've covered relationships, health, even parenting. But Levinson also explored some pretty complex topics, karma, reincarnation. Where do those fit into this idea of personal freedom? He actually considered those concepts part of the illusion.
Really?
He said that when we recognize our true nature, that limitless beingness, we can move beyond their influence.
So while those concepts might help us understand life cycles, they shouldn't limit us.
Exactly. It's about focusing on who we are now, what we choose to create in this present moment, not dwelling on past regrets or worrying about future outcomes.
It's about reclaiming our power in the present moment. That reminds me of the suppression-expression cycle from Appendix A.
Oh, right.
Levinson explained how we tend to either suppress our negative emotions or express them outwardly. It's like we're stuck, either bottling things up or exploding.
And neither approach really solves the problem.
No, it's just temporary relief.
They don't address that root cause, which is our attachment to those feelings.
So Levinson believed that true freedom came from releasing those emotions entirely.
Exactly. Making space for a more authentic, fulfilling experience.
I'm starting to see how releasing can apply to so many areas of life.
It's like we've been given this amazing tool, but we don't quite know how to use it.
Right.
Levinson's release technique, it helps us tap into the full potential of what's possible.
So what's the secret to mastering this technique? Is it about willpower, discipline, or is it something else?
Levinson would say it all starts with awareness.
Awareness.
Becoming mindful of our thoughts, feelings, behaviors.
Recognizing the patterns that keep us stuck.
Exactly. Once we see those patterns, we can start to release them.
So it's not about forcing change, but about gently guiding ourselves in a new direction.
I like that.
Like we're becoming gardeners of our own minds.
Nurturing those seeds of growth and transformation.
Beautiful. And just like gardening, it takes time, consistency. We have to embrace those natural cycles.
Growth and decay, just like in nature.
Exactly. It's about trusting the process, knowing that even when we hit those bumps in the road, we're still moving forward.
Levinson emphasized that the path to freedom isn't always easy, but it's worth it.
Totally agree. Didn't he also talk about the importance of helping others as a way to accelerate our own growth? He seemed to believe that giving actually benefits us more than receiving.
He was all about the power of giving. Divine love, he said, is giving without expecting anything back.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness and sharing our gifts freely without any strings attached.
Exactly. As we help others, we ultimately help ourselves, you know. It expands our own capacity for love and understanding.
So it's not about just doing good deeds, but about cultivating that genuine spirit of generosity and compassion. But doesn't that require a lot of selflessness? How can we give to others when we're still working on our own stuff?
Levinson would say that true giving, it comes from a place of wholeness,
Okay.
not lack or need, recognizing that we have something valuable to offer, even when we're still figuring things out ourselves.
So we don't have to wait until we're perfect to start giving.
Exactly. And by focusing on giving, we shift our attention away from our own problems. We connect with a deeper purpose.
It's about realizing that true fulfillment comes from what we give, not what we get. But what about when we feel drained, resentful? How do we avoid burnout when we're giving so much?
Levinson believed those feelings of depletion often mean we're not taking care of ourselves, or we're giving out of obligation, not true desire. He was big on setting boundaries.
So it's okay to prioritize our own well-being.
Absolutely. Taking care of ourselves allows us to give from a place of fullness, joy, not emptiness or resentment.
So taking care of ourselves isn't selfish, it's actually essential for being able to give freely and authentically. This is all starting to make so much sense. It's like we're learning a new language, the language of personal freedom. And with each new word phrase, we're becoming more fluent in expressing ourselves and connecting with the world.
And just like learning any new language, it takes practice, patience.
I'm definitely ready to keep practicing. We've only just scratched the surface of Levenson's teachings.
We have. There's so much more to explore and uncover.
You know, one thing that keeps coming up with Levenson is awareness.
Oh, yeah, big time.
He's all about understanding our thoughts, our beliefs, and how they shape things.
He'd always say, like, pay attention. You create your own reality.
Right. But isn't there a danger in overthinking everything? Sometimes I just want to relax and enjoy life without analyzing every little thing.
He wasn't saying we should be analyzing all the time.
Okay.
It was more about cultivating that mindful awareness,
Yeah,
you know?
like tending a garden,
Exactly.
weeding out the negative thoughts and nurturing the positive ones.
You got it. But this whole idea that our thoughts create reality, that's still pretty wild to me.
I know.
Don't external factors play a role too?
Right. Like things happen that are outside of our control.
He acknowledged that, for sure. But he believed our thoughts influence how we experience those events.
Interesting.
He often talked about desire, how we create lack by identifying with our limited ego.
Instead of our true, infinite nature.
Exactly.
So we're trying to fill a void that can't be filled with external things because true fulfillment comes from within.
He believed that wholeheartedly.
Wow. Profound, but also kind of confusing. How do we shift from that ego-driven mindset to one of inner abundance?
He talked about decreasing desire for the world and increasing desire for liberation.
And the self.
Yes. Recognizing that lasting happiness doesn't come from material things.
But from connecting with our true nature.
You got it. It's like he said, satisfying desires gives us temporary pleasure, but real joy is already inside us.
It's like we're searching for something we already have.
Yeah.
But how do we access that joy when there are so many distractions?
And meditation. He was a huge advocate.
Meditation, huh?
He saw it as a way to quiet the mind and reveal the true self.
Not emptying the mind completely.
No, but focusing our attention inward.
Being present.
Exactly.
But my mind is so busy, it's like a wild monkey. Any tips for taming that monkey mind?
He suggested focusing on one thought, one question, like, who am I?
Okay.
That focus can help cut through all the noise.
So give the mind a job to do.
Right. And then those insights can start to appear.
That makes sense. But what about those doubts that creep in? The ones that say we're not good enough?
Levenson would say those are just thoughts, not truths.
Okay.
He believed that by seeing them as illusions and releasing them, we could break free.
From those negative thoughts.
Yes. And experience more self-acceptance, more peace.
Easier said than done. It's one thing to understand it intellectually, but to actually feel it, that's a whole other thing.
He emphasized that self-love wasn't about ego or denying our flaws.
So what is it about?
Recognizing our inherent worthiness.
That's humans.
Regardless of our achievements or shortcomings.
So accepting ourselves unconditionally, just as we are.
Exactly. But what about when we mess up? When we don't meet our own expectations?
Yeah, how do we balance self-acceptance with that desire to grow and be better?
He believed true growth comes from self-love, not self-criticism.
So be kind to ourselves, even when we make mistakes.
Exactly. See those mistakes as chances to learn and grow.
Embrace the journey, with all its ups and downs.
That's it.
But how do we cultivate self-compassion when we're so used to judging ourselves?
Levenson emphasized forgiveness.
Forgiving ourselves.
And others. It's not about condoning hurtful actions, but letting go of that baggage.
Like freeing ourselves from the prison of self-judgment.
Right. But forgiveness can be so difficult.
Especially when we've been hurt deeply.
He believed true strength came from connecting with our inner power, that wisdom within.
Like we're not alone in this.
Exactly. There's a higher power, whatever you choose to call it, that's always there to help.
It's like a wellspring of love and forgiveness that we can tap into.
Beautiful. But how do we connect with that when we're full of doubt and fear?
Right. How do we clear the way?
Gratitude. He was a big believer in the power of gratitude.
So focusing on the good, even when things are tough.
It shifts our perspective, opens our hearts.
And that can make a huge difference in how we experience life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of challenges, there's always something to be grateful for.
I love that. This has been such an incredible journey. Levenson's teachings offer so much to anyone seeking a more fulfilling life.
They really do. It's about taking these insights and applying them, experimenting with them.
So it's not just about listening, it's about doing.
He was all about action, about taking ownership of our journey.
This has been so thought-provoking. I'm excited to keep exploring these ideas and see how they can shape my life.
Me too. And remember, it's a process, not a destination. There will be bumps along the way.
Challenges are inevitable.
But by seeing them as opportunities, by practicing awareness, releasing self-love,
We can create a life that's truly aligned with who we are.
our deepest desires, our true nature, it's all within reach.
What a powerful message. To wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one of my favorite Levenson quotes. We have the possibility of going all the way back home, right to the absolute. It reminds us that we're not just these limited selves, we're limitless beings of love, joy, and wisdom.
And as we embrace that truth, we can create a more beautiful world for ourselves and everyone around us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into personal freedom.
It's been a pleasure.